I've covered a number of Studio Ghibli films on this channel: Spirited Away, Ponyo, and Kiki's Delivery Service. The work of Studio Ghibli is special, and I think it's brimming with some of the most fantastical worlds and characters I've ever seen. The attention to detail is impeccable, and the stories are so rich with meaning, it can be tough to peel back the layers to see what's really going on underneath. I recently rewatched The Boy and The Heron, and boy, that one is a doozy. Studio Ghibli really knows how to tap into the dark recesses of the mind to bring out not only spectacular new worlds, but to make it feel strangely nostalgic. Who hasn't felt a deep connection with Chihiro or Kiki? The same feelings bubble up with Mahito. It's as if I'm watching an animated version of myself on screen. Today, I'm going to try to do justice to this incredible work of animation and break down some of the symbolism and the overarching meaning embedded in The Boy and the Heron. First, a quick recap of the movie in case it's been a while. Spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the film. Our protagonist's name is Mahito, and he's a young boy living during wartime Japan. Mahito's mother perishes in a fire in the beginning of the film, and this sets the stage for the rest of the movie. Mahito's father remarries, and it's to Mahito's mother's younger sister, Natsuko. Mahito moves into a house with his father, Natsuko, and his soon-to-be younger sibling as Natsuko is pregnant. Mahito is struggling with the loss of his mother, and he's still learning how to grieve. We see his struggle during confrontations with classmates at his new school, his self-harm, and emotional outbursts. Upon arriving at his new home, a mysterious gray heron makes himself known to Mahito. The heron taunts Mahito and attempts to lure him to a new world. Seemingly in an attempt to get Mahito, Natsuko wanders off into the forest. Mahito eventually takes the bait and finds his way into a tower that's close to the new home. As he enters the tower, things are not quite as they seem, and he demands that Natsuko be returned to him so that he can make his way home. He descends deeper into a fantasy world where he meets a host of colorful characters and fantastical creatures. Mahito eventually finds Natsuko, who is ostensibly shifted into a completely different person as she tells him to leave. Mahito finds himself in a tough situation, but eventually he makes his way to an older man who discloses himself to be Mahito's great-granduncle. Mahito is expected to take over as creator and sustainer of this new world, but he's reluctant to take on this new role. The king of the parakeets sneaks into the space where the origin of this fantasy land is taking place, and he wishes to take on the role of creator-sustainer himself. This was a foolish mistake, as the world immediately crumbles and starts to implode. Mahito is able to escape with Natsuko as they return to the mundane world, as his father and caretakers breathe a sigh of relief. What makes this film so compelling, and most of Studio Ghibli films, is how well the hero's journey is incorporated. Now, I've discussed this concept in depth in previous videos, so we won't get deep into the idea behind the hero's journey. All we need to know is that our hero starts off in the mundane world, travels to a strange, mysterious land, and comes back from it rejuvenated, bringing back something precious. Now that we know the overall structure, we can look at some of the components and analyze what exactly was the point of the journey. The core theme and springboard for the film is Mahito's relationship with the death of his mother. Mahito is grief-stricken. Who wouldn't be? He's a young child, and he's growing up during a time of uncertainty, scarcity, and tragedy. On top of all that, he lost what's likely the most important person in his life. When we look at the unconscious attribution of the mother, I think that the mother is a proxy for life itself. One's disposition and overall attitude towards the mother can dictate one's attitude and disposition towards life. This is why mother complexes are so profound, and this concept has found itself into the mainstream consciousness of people far removed from the field of psychoanalysis where it originated. Our good friend Carl Jung describes the mother complex as having two polarities, positive and negative. The word complex is used to describe the intricate web of associations one has with a symbol. In Mahito's case, he has a negative mother complex, which has intertwined his intense feelings of loss, anger, and grief with life itself. This is exemplified when he engages in self-harm via using a rock to injure the side of his head. Mahito's great-granduncle asks later in film for him to stack blocks, and this will sustain the world. Mahito states that he can feel the malice in the stones, and he knows this because he has harbored malice himself when he injured himself with the rock earlier in the film. Now, let's look at some of the symbols that let us know that we're within the hero's journey and the transition from the mundane into this new, strange, unknown world. and this will be Mahito's unconscious. Mahito runs into a tower, and he had noticed the tower earlier in the film, and when he first got a peek at the tower, there were stairs that ascended upward, and this is what one would expect with a tower. However, when he gets to the tower, the heron tricks him into believing that his mother is there and she never really died. This is the idealized mother figure. This was created by the heron, which is later espoused by the heron that it was one of his best creations. When Mahito goes up to make contact with this mother figure, she dissolves into water. This is an important symbol as water is typically a clue that we are dealing with unconscious content. Now, rather than being able to ascend up into the tower, Mahito is told by a mysterious figure who later turns out to be his great-granduncle that he must go down to save Natsuko. And we notice Mahito doesn't go up into the tower, he descends down. Now, when Mahito first gets down into the tower, we notice that he is on an island that's engulfed by the ocean. This is important as the ocean, similar to the water concept, is the unconscious material. It's interesting that Mahito descends down rather than going up, and this shows that he's going down to collect the unconscious materials. As Carl Jung says, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is uncomfortable and therefore not popular. Figures of light remind one of looking upwards, such as towards the sun, and darkness is assumed to be below. The heron is tasked with being Mahito's guide through the unconscious, another very often seen trope within the hero's journey, one that may be the trickster or one that is supposed to be an enemy becomes friend. That reversal from foe to friend is one of those shifts that let us know that we are in the unconscious and we are within the hero's journey. It's interesting to look at the relationship between animals and humans within not only Studio Ghibli, but the hero's journey as a whole. These motifs pop up in fairy tales, movies, and myths all over the world. Now, we see that when the heron is first trying to get Mahito to go with him into this new strange world, we see frogs, we see different animals, and we see the interaction that they have with Mahito. They're trying to bring him into it. When we look at animals, oftentimes they are representative of the unconscious. A very central figure in The Boy and the Heron is the noble pelican. Now, this is an interesting scene as he only pops up in this one scene and we get a monologue from him and then that's the end of his character. The noble pelican was part of a group of pelicans who were trying to eat the wara wara, which are little souls that were ascending upward out of this realm that we were in, and they were about to be born. The noble pelican becomes burned by the fire maiden, who later is revealed to be Mahito's mother, Lord Hime, and as he's burned, he says this to Mahito: "Young one, put me out of my misery. My wing is broken, I cannot fly. We did not choose this life. My kind were brought to this hellscape so we could eat the wara wara. This sea has few fish we can eat. My kind were all starving. We flew as high as we could, as high and far as our wings could carry us, but it always ends the same way. We could only reach this island. Now, our newborns are forgetting how to fly. We eat the wara wara. The fire maiden burns us. The sea here is cursed. We flew as high as we could, as high and far as our wings could carry us, but it always ended the same way. We could only reach this island. We eat the wara wara. The fire maiden burns us." Let's first look at the name, the noble pelican. Obviously, what the noble pelican is discussing here is the misery of life here along the island. There's nothing else for the pelicans to eat, and so they must eat the wara wara, something that's seen as precious to others, but this is the only way that they can survive. The pelican and his kind are starving, and we assume that the newborns are starving too. The newborns are precious to the pelicans, just as the wara wara are precious to others. The fire maiden chooses to protect the wara wara, but the pelicans are only trying to protect themselves. What this reveals to Mahito is that life is cruel. It's not fair for anyone. It's not fair for the wara wara, and it's not fair for the pelicans. However, this is what must be. I think the name, the noble pelican, comes from the first noble truth in Buddhism, that life itself is suffering. This is revealed to Mahito and is the first step in him solving his negative mother complex. Mahito meets Lady Hime, who's the fire maiden, and of course, the irony there is that she's the fire maiden. This turns out to be his mother, and she died from a fire in real life. As Mahito goes through this wonderful land, he finds Natsuko as she's in a delivery room, about to deliver her baby, presumably. Lady Hime is who led Mahito there, and it's revealed to us that this is a huge transgression. We don't know if the rule is that nobody is allowed to be in the delivery room with Natsuko, but we do know that Mahito is not allowed to be in there. Now, this is never really revealed to us in the film of why Mahito's not allowed to be in the delivery room, but what I think is going on is that we are in a room where life is about to take place. Mahito has a negative outlook on life. I think that Natsuko's reaction to Mahito, her yelling, I hate you, get out. I think that that is Mahito's own unconscious feelings about life itself. I think that Mahito, like we stated earlier, has a negative predisposition towards life due to his mother dying, and this is found root in his unconscious and is expressed through Natsuko. So her yelling, I hate you, get out. This is only Mahito's own reaction to life, and this is what the huge transgression is. It's that he's unable to accept life. However, he's there in the room where it's about to be. Life itself is about to bloom. Mahito then finds himself in a room where the center of the universe seems to take place. This is where he meets his great-granduncle. His great-granduncle wants him to take over as the designer and sustainer of this world. However, Mahito has reservations about this. Like I said earlier, he believes he can feel the malice in the stones, but his great-granduncle is looking for an heir and wants him to take over. We'll come back to this later. Mahito, after this first interaction with his great-granduncle, finds himself chained up by the parakeets, soon to be eaten. The heron comes to his rescue, however they have to go rescue Lady Hime. This is interesting, of course, too, because Mahito never got an opportunity to save his mother in real life. In this world, he's given that opportunity again. Our time in this world climaxes when Lady Hime, the heron, and Mahito are brought to the room which seems to be the center of the universe here. This is where Mahito's great-granduncle is, and the Parakeet King is also there. Now, the Parakeet King wants the power to himself. However, Mahito's great-granduncle wants him to stay there and wants him to be the sustainer. It's interesting that the man that wants Mahito to stay in this world is his uncle, as the uncle carries huge significance in the unconscious realms. Marie-Louise von Franz, who we've talked about in abundance on this channel, discusses the concept of the uncle figure in some of her works on alchemy and fairy tales. The way von Franz interprets the uncle is they are seen to be a shadowy substitute father figure, and what the uncle acts as is a corrupted version of the father. The father being a symbol of authority and wisdom, the uncle is a corrupted version of this. And it's tricky, but I think that we do see this in The Boy and the Heron. Now, nothing at first glance seems off about Mahito's great-granduncle. However, what he wants is Mahito to take the place of himself. If Mahito were to accept, he would never be able to leave this world. He's the sustainer of the world. He has to develop and he has to stack the blocks every 3 days. The whole reason Mahito got here was to bring Natsuko back home. If he gave in to this uncle figure, this would be totally negating his whole goal and his whole reason for being here. The uncle is tricking him and giving him one last test. He can stay in the unconscious and in this new world, and doing this would negate the purpose of the hero's journey. Of course, one of the most important things in the hero's journey is always the return. The hero must return back to the mundane world. However, this time when they get back, they have something new that helps guide them through the mundane world. When we look at Mahito's great-granduncle with this point of view, it shows that his uncle is the very last test. Had he given in to the uncle, he would never complete the hero's journey, and he would never have learned from his mistakes and changed his whole point of view. Luckily, Mahito doesn't give in and he's able to make it back home. We don't know what happens after Mahito gets back home. However, we do see that he was able to say goodbye to his mother in the way that he would have wanted to. He warned his mother, should she go through the door, she would die in the fire. However, the mother is able to go through that door still, and Mahito lets her go. Mahito then brings Natsuko back to the mundane world where he returns to. It looks like Mahito more than likely was able to solve his negative mother complex and inverted that into a positive mother complex. His disposition towards the world now would be a positive one. He understands from the noble pelican that life itself is suffering. However, one must push on. There's no way to bring his mother back, but he's able to live life despite that. His malice, hopefully, has been given up, and with Mahito's new positive mother complex, he's able to see the world in a new way.